Good evening. The webinar will begin in a few minutes. Please take note of the housekeeping items on your screen now. Prior to us starting, all participants' video and audio will be muted this evening. If you are a junior or senior high school student from St. Clair County, please rename yourself for the scholarship drawing at the end of this evening. Good evening and welcome to the student-to-student webinar. My name is Nick Boudre from St. Clair County RESA, the supervisor for career and college programs, also representing Blue Water College Access Network this evening. Tonight, we continue the message we had going throughout the winter series, starting with the college ABCC's webinar, when we took a look at associate, bachelor, credential, and certificate programs, and followed that up with the parent-to-parent webinar with families that shared their family story pursuing each of these programs in pursuit of a successful career. Tonight, we're going to continue the same conversation with a panel of current college students in these specific programs. Our goal tonight is to help you better understand these programs, the degrees and the credentials that are aligned to them, and then the careers that will be a result of all your hard work. A special note, all these careers that we'll be detailing this evening in the webinar are part of the Michigan Hot 50 Careers that is published until the year of 2028. These are the highest in demand, highest paying careers for the next 7 years. The format for this evening will be a 30 to 40 minute discussion with our panelists, followed by a question and answer segment where the audience can ask questions via the chat button at the end of or at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation and before then. Some suggestions for this evening as you hear each of the 4 panelists talk, ask yourself this: what stage is your current career in college planning at? The next question would be, what level of training or education is required to obtain the career of your dreams? And lastly, where and when will you start this education and training? Without further ado, let's get started with our first guest. Spotlight. Emily Tenniswood is joining us this evening from Michigan State University. Thank you so much for joining us, Emily.
Hi, it's so nice to be here.
Emily is a graduate of St. Clair High School and is no stranger to some of our events here at St. Clair County RESA. So we're very fortunate to have her this evening. Well, Emily, give us kind of a preview of what you are majoring and minoring in at Michigan State University.
All right, so my name is Emily. I'm a senior at MSU and I am majoring in behavioral and systems neuroscience with a minor in cognitive science, and I am pre-med.
Very good. And how did you come about wanting to major in this at Michigan State? Was there something throughout your life or maybe in high school that really piqued your interest?
I have two kind of funny stories. My first exposure to neuroscience was actually in AP Bio when I was a sophomore. And we got to hold a sheep brain, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then when the movie Concussion came out with Will Smith, I was absolutely fascinated by all of the biology and physiology in that. And that really got me into researching different careers with the brain and with science, and that's really what got me into neuroscience.
Okay. Well, you touched on a topic that I was gonna, bring up a little bit later. But you brought up the AP Bio, and I believe it's a special conversation, and you and I have talked about actually on a few occasions. You took a lot of AP classes in high school, didn't you?
Yeah.
How many did you take?
I think 11 when I was all done.
So when you stepped on foot at Michigan State University, what was did you come in as a freshman or where were you at with credits?
So I ended up transferring about 48 credits. So I was a sophomore in my first semester, and then by my second semester, I had moved up to junior standing. So that was really phenomenal because it allowed me to not take as many credits the rest of my semesters, and I could focus on work and volunteering and still have a lot of time for my schoolwork.
Oh, I think that's a tremendous accomplishment before even heading to college.
Thanks.
That question because we do have some underclassmen in the event this evening, and those AP classes are offered through your high school, correct?
Yep.
Very good. So you take the AP classes. You're at Michigan State now. How's it going? What's a day to day look like in your specific major?
In my major. Well, obviously, it's a little bit different now thanks to all this COVID craziness and online craziness. But right now, I am living in an apartment with two of my best friends doing remote classes. So I usually get up and I have usually two classes in the morning. So that's about 3 to 3.5 hours of work. Grab some lunch, do some homework, usually take a quick nap, and then I go to work. And I'm a patient safety sitter at Sparrow Hospital right now. So I work about 16 to 20 hours a week. And then on the days that I'm not working, it's mostly homework. I meet with my research lab, and we have lab meetings to discuss different psychology papers. And then I just hang out with my friends.
So that was in our current times right now.
Yeah.
You touched on that because we are, working our way out of these current times. Everything's very virtual as we are tonight. What was it like when you were on campus?
Oh my gosh. First of all, I love MSU's campus. If you're thinking about coming here, I'm a little bit biased. It's beautiful. I love walking to class. So usually get up in the dorms, have breakfast, and then I usually took about two classes a day, 2 or 3 classes a day. So you go and then walk, the half an hour to class, go to lecture, then grab some lunch, and then usually just do homework back in the dorms or the library for a little bit, and then grab dinner with my friends in the cafeteria, watch a movie, and then usually some more homework, lots of chemistry problem sets, that kind of thing.
Okay. Well, and I was going to ask that question, kind of follow up of what those classes look like. You talked a little bit about the problem sets, the
Mhm.
labs. What are those like for the students that are still in high school? And what can they expect, especially if they're going to pursue a major quite like yours?
Yeah, so as a neuroscience major, most of my classes are STEM based, especially because I came in with those AP credits. So I skipped most of the introductory, like freshman writing, freshman bio, all that kind of stuff. So, for instance, now most of my classes are about 30 people. It's very discussion based, lecture based. But my first 2 years on campus, I did have pretty large lectures. You go, so for intro chemistry, you go and it's about an hour and a half long lecture where the professor's delivering material. And then you go the next day to about an hour recitation where you work in a group on different chemistry problems and stuff like that. I do write papers, particularly now that I'm in my upperclassmen level neuroscience and psychology classes. But generally, as a STEM major, your underclassmen level courses, it's going to be mostly like your basic homework problems and not so much like an 8 to 10 page research paper.
And my next question is going to talk a little bit because I know you're preparing for medical school, correct?
Yep.
So it's going to be kind of twofold because you touched a little bit on what people can do in high school. You know, you mentioned writing papers and STEM and all these topics, but you're also getting yourself ready for med school as well.
Yeah.
Your work experience is helping with that. So what are you doing right now to get ready for med school? That'll be my first question. And second one is, how has your work experience helped you with that?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, so to get ready, first of all, just to apply to med school, I had to take a whole bunch of prerequisite classes like biology, chemistry, biochem, physiology, lots of different labs. And then I used the knowledge in those classes. I applied to my MCAT. So I studied for the MCAT this past summer and took that. And then right now I'm working on writing all of my essays for my application. And then just absorbing all of the content from my upper level science classes that I'm going to need in medical school. And then as far as my job, I love being a safety sitter. It's definitely a tough job. If you don't know what that is, I basically sit in a room with patients that are elderly and confused, or they're dealing with some substance abuse issues, or they're at risk of harming themselves. And I basically keep them company and make sure that they're safe. So that job is fantastic in that I get to be kind of a fly on the wall to all the doctor-patient interactions. I get to see how the doctors work with the nurses and how the healthcare team as a whole works together. So I get to take all of those experiences that I've had and talk about them in my medical school interviews and in my application, and hopefully carry with me that experience as a physician in the future.
Well, thank you so much for touching on that. And even with your work, Emily, because I get asked often, you know, we're trying to explore careers, and that's a part of not only high school, but also in college, and that real life experience. And how can I, feel it for the first time, see it for the first time, hear it for the first time, how much has that helped you not only for medical school, but just fuel your passion?
It's been phenomenal. I actually was not pre-med when I came into college. My first semester, I was 100% sure I was gonna finish my undergrad and then actually go to graduate school and do a PhD in neuroscience. I wanted to do research full time. And then I got into a research lab. And while I love my research, I love my fellow research assistants, my lab manager, I realized that that was not what I wanted to do the rest of my life. I really needed the one-on-one, like person interaction that comes with medicine, but still having that hard science background. So I shadowed a doctor at the end of my freshman year, and that just it was a completely new experience. It was so cool. And then doing the safety sitting has just absolutely confirmed to me that medicine is what I want to do in the future, to really have a difference in people's lives.
Well, and that'll lead me to my next question. For the high school students that are on here tonight, what advice would you give them that want to pursue maybe a similar major or something in the health careers field?
Well, first of all, I'd say it's a phenomenal idea for any profession, but specifically healthcare fields. If you're thinking about that, to get involved with volunteering right away, any graduate school application, med school application, they're going to want to see that you have interests outside of school, and that you're doing things that are giving back to the community. And that's also a really good way to kind of give yourself a break from the stress of college, is to go and volunteer at a soup kitchen and just spend some time with people whose situations are a little bit different than yours. And it really helps adjust your perspective while you're going through college. And then the other thing I would say is if you're thinking about medicine, you absolutely need to shadow a doctor. That's the only way you're really going to know if this is something that you're interested in, because it's a lot different than TV and media portray medicine. So yeah.
It's a little different than Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, just a little.
Okay, all right. Well, Emily, thank you so much. We want to get to the other panelists, but we'll be coming back to you during the question and answer period a little bit. So we're going to move on to our second panelist. It's coming to us from U of M, the rival of Michigan State University. Josh Wyhofer, graduate from Marysville High School. Josh, how you doing tonight?
Good. Thank you for having me.
You guys had a nice win last night.
We
Congratulations.
did.
So yeah.
Definitely a close one, but
It was. Well, Josh, just like Emily, give us a little bit of an overview of what you're majoring in right now at U of M.
so yeah, I'm currently a sophomore credit-wise and year-wise at U of M studying civil engineering through the actual College of Engineering here. So
Okay. And did you declare that major when you stepped foot on U of M's campus?
no, I waited until the very end of freshman year. I actually declared my major over a Zoom call last year when we first got sent home. And so it was kind of weird because like you didn't get the whole like shebang, go in the office, they give you the t-shirt and celebrate with you, but I got a clap over email. So
Okay. So Josh, when you graduated high school and you went to U of M and got accepted, was it always engineering? How did you become interested in engineering?
um I've always had math and science and STEM courses as like my strong suit. And I know that I didn't really like writing in high school. And so a lot of the jobs, just talking with family friends who are engineers, talking about some of the stuff they did and their like experiences in college sounded very interesting to me. And so I went and applied to the College of Engineering and got accepted into that. So
Very good. And now you're accepted in engineering, and I'm going to ask you questions because you and I had a tremendous conversation around this whole experience for you. But there's a lot of high school students that are interested in engineering, but many don't know how vast that field actually is and how many different disciplines that there
yeah.
are in engineering. So if you're interested in engineering, to get accepted into the college, did you know that you wanted to pursue civil right away?
No, civil was never actually my intention. I didn't even really know what the field of civil engineering was. I went in kind of as my mistake, closed-minded, saying, "Oh, I'm going to do mechanical engineering," which to me just sounded like kind of the general like engineering major that would cover all the bases. But no, like you said, engineering is a really, really wide field. So going in, there was so much information that was coming in that it eventually led to me sort of switching over from mechanical to civil around the start of my second semester.
Okay. And what led you to the switch? Was there anyone, maybe a class, maybe a conversation that made that switch for you?
Yeah. So, what sort of started the transition was I had ended up joining a few clubs. One of them was like an electric motorcycle team, which on the basis was really cool. Like we wrote all the software, we built everything like ourselves. We had Ford come in and actually fabricate our body. And so that was cool to work with like some people from Ford, but I just, I became very uninterested in it very quickly. And so I kind of like had to take a step back and say, okay, maybe mechanical isn't the right thing. And it was really weird because there was a phase of time where I had zero clue what I wanted to do within engineering. And I was sort of like looking for someone to talk to. And so through U of M, I don't think it's actually sponsored or made by U of M, but the website that they used was called Handshake. And so basically it's a website that allowed alumni from Michigan or other schools to sort of just go on the website and say, hey, I'm here to talk. And so what I ended up doing was just emailing professors that I enjoyed in class and some people off of Handshake who were alumni and just said, hey, I was curious about like some of the stuff you did or your college experience. Is there any way you could sit down with a 30-minute meeting with me and just chat about stuff? And so that's eventually what I ended up doing. I think the one deciding meeting was just with a guy over coffee who was a construction manager. And he said that civil engineering had some of the stuff to offer that I took interest to. And that's how I ended up veering over in that direction.
Well, that's going to lead me to the next question. So, well, actually, we have some exciting topics as well about where the major's going. But what does a day to day look like? Let's start it on campus pre-COVID for a student in your major. You got accepted into the engineering College of Engineering.
Mm-hmm. So Michigan's campus is actually split up into three parts. There's like the central campus, which is where a lot of the buildings are, and then south is where all the sports happens. And then there's North Campus, which is mainly engineering, and then there's some like performing arts. But a large part of that North Campus is just all engineering. And so a lot of what engineers do, me and my roommates and basically everyone, is if you don't live up there day to day, what we would all do is, you get breakfast, you get your pre-classes stuff out of the way, whatever your routine is. And then we would just go up to North Campus, take a bus. Michigan has an excellent bus system that runs pretty much 24/7. And so we'd go up to North Campus, go to the classes that we had to go to. And then in between classes, we would either like grab lunch on North. There were a lot of restaurants or like there were a few dining halls actually that we could use. And then in between classes, we would just do homework or out of class stuff all on North Campus, just because there's so many resources up there. And that's one of the things that I think caused that was there was a lot of like help centers. There were professors were up there all the time, always willing to like let you step in for a few minutes. And then basically after classes, you take the bus back down to your dorm or apartment. And then I work at one of the rec centers. And so after that, I would end up going to work, come back to an apartment, do some more homework, whatever needed to be done. And yeah, pretty basic. I like to try and keep all of my work in one chunk so I can just waste as little time as possible, because you hear all of these engineering horror stories where people are up until 4 or 5 a.m. on a daily basis trying to crunch stuff in problem sets. But I found that if you can really just manage your time well and sort of like keep that all like in a little bit of a sense where you're not trying to space stuff out, it's actually pretty manageable.
That was going to be my next question. What's the biggest challenge for you or for somebody that's in this major?
I would say civil engineering, there's a lot of branches of engineering that sort of intertwine. So like there's a lot of programming that's involved. There's a lot of just general physics. There's a lot of math, and there's actually a lot of chemistry too involved if you work with like concrete or substances like that. And so being well-rounded STEM-wise and academically is probably the bigger challenge, I would say, for civil engineering, just because there's so much that is incorporated into the field.
Okay. What's the best part of your major for you?
I would say the best part is the just person-to-person interaction, because that's what I went into engineering kind of skeptical that I was just going to end up getting a job where I made some good money, but I was at a desk all day crunching numbers and just doing somebody else's work at their request. But civil engineering, just because it's all infrastructure based, so like roads, bridges, buildings, transportation systems, it requires a lot of teamwork with a lot of different people from a lot of different branches. So the best part for me is being able to work with a lot of people face to face and communicating with people, because that's how I love to like work and just build projects together, is with other people instead of just on a computer.
And that's kind of a misconception, Josh. I know a lot of students and families that I talk to in terms of engineering, that it is a very siloed profession, that it's just you and your project. And that's going to lead me in, because we had a good conversation about this, is what's your advice for a high school student that is considering engineering and possibly in the same field or maybe a different field, and maybe some feedback as they explore that?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing I would tell, especially myself from just going in, is go in with an open mind, because the field of engineering is so vast and there's so many different things that you can do and fit to your special skills or desires, that it's becomes, just because it's such, I don't want to call it like an uber competitive field, like maybe like a business or a law environment, but the field of engineering is quite competitive when it comes to like jobs and having the highest priority. And so you don't want to rabbit hole yourself into something that you think will get you where you want to be, because what'll end up happening is you'll end up getting somewhere that you don't like, and then you'll think, oh, I can't back out now because I'm already so set up nice. So go in with an open mind, knowing that there are endless things that you can put your strengths to. If you're better at chemistry, then there's chemical engineering. If you're better at math, then there's mechanical engineering. So there's a lot that you can find out there that you probably haven't even heard of, because I didn't hear about a lot of it when I was in high school. So
Nice, Josh. Thanks. Well, I'm going to wrap up with one more question for you here, and it talks a little bit about the question right before that, in terms of the interaction and be able to communicate in the field of engineering. Tell us a little bit about your internship and the interview that you just had for it.
yeah, so I actually just today got to meet with a man at the company, and I got my email all set up. And so my internship this summer is a project engineer working with a company called A&R Brower out of Dexter, Michigan. They're a project management company. And so basically what I'm going to be doing this summer is working with everyone at the office and then traveling to the job site to sort of maintain day-to-day operations, and keep time logs of all of the priorities going towards the project, making sure everything's getting done on time, um, doing the occasional running numbers of making sure that we can get a certain amount of materials or that something will hold up. But the interview I had was over Zoom earlier this year, and then I got to go into the office in October, I think it was. And I've just been talking back and forth with the company ever since. So I'm doing that this summer, I think throughout the whole summer. So beginning of May throughout all of August. So
That's great. But Josh, thank you so much for so much information, much like Emily, in a short amount of time. We're going to move on to our next guest and then come back to you. Hopefully the audience is developing some questions, and I know I have some as well. So thanks a lot, Josh.
yeah, thank you.
All right, our next guest is actually coming to us from Wyoming, and I'm going to share my screen because we were having some technical difficulties with his camera. So Avery, if you could unmute your microphone, we are going to still interview you just as is. And we're really glad that you're joining us. Can you hear me, Avery?
Yep, I can hear you great.
All right, Avery. Well, Avery, we got a nice picture of you up there. We got your school's logo up there. So Avery George is out at Wild Tech in Wyoming. He's a graduate of Port Huron High School, as well as St. Clair County Tech. Avery, tell us, just first and foremost, what's it like out in Wyoming going to school?
It's a beautiful place. There's mountains all over. I'm about 45 to 10 minutes from 4 different national parks. It's a great place to be. I love it.
Yeah, that's great. I'm jealous. I hope to vacation out there soon. So you're out at Wild Tech. What program are you studying out there right now?
Currently, I am doing collision and refinishing, and I have finished applied service management.
Okay. So are you pursuing, so there's 2 parts of that program, correct?
Yeah, so there's the collision portion, which is like fixing wrecked cars, and then the refinishing is painting and just making cars look like they came off the showroom.
Okay. And in our conversations when we were prepping for this webinar here over the last couple of days, you're also going to have an associate's degree, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what's that going to be in?
That will be in business management.
Business management. So it's just not one certification. You're also going to have an associate's degree, correct?
Correct.
All right. And how long is your program?
Altogether, between the applied service management and collision and refinishing, it's 9 months.
9 months. Wow. That's a lot compact just down into 9 months.
Yeah, it's a very fast-paced class.
Oh, do you like that? Does that kind of fit your style and your interest?
Yeah, it works great for me. I'm actually an Eagle Tech, so I'm one of the more, I don't know how to explain it. I'm more of a helper in the class. People come to me for advice and everything when they're doing their work. But yeah, it's not bad. It's pretty toned down compared to some of the other classes I've taken in high school.
Well, I'm going to backtrack really quick. I got ahead of myself getting into talking about wild tech. When did you become interested in auto and collision and just the trade itself?
My dad got me into the automotive industry a long time ago when I was just a kid. He would always bring me to car shows and would always work around cars with me. And then as I grew older, I started buying go-karts and he'd show me how to fix cars and I just fell in love with it.
Very good. And that led you to pursuing certifications and training during high school at St. Clair Tech.
Yep.
Okay, tell us a little bit about the program when you were in high school and how many years you were out there and what that looked like before you even graduated.
So my first year was with Mr. Belfinger in automotive technology, and we went over brakes, steering, and suspension. I learned so much in that class that I never thought I would ever learn that much. And then my second year, my senior year, I was in automotive technology again with Mr. Hunter for engines and electrical.
Okay. And out there for your junior and senior year, correct?
Yes, sir.
What did that look like, for the students that are underclassmen in the audience tonight, having a half of a day in your high school and a half a day out at St. Clair Tech?
It was a nice break from the high school type of environment. I was able to go do what I loved and talk to my friends that all loved the same things, make new connections, and yeah.
That's awesome. So let's fast forward a little bit. And your dad is actually one of our panelists on the Parent to Parent webinar here a few weeks ago. And he shared the story of, taking you through high school. And he's actually an instructor out at St. Clair Tech right now. And then the decision to go to a trade school and finally out at Wild Tech. Did you visit any trade schools other than just Wild Tech before enrolling there in the fall?
Yeah, I visited Ohio Technical College in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay. And how did that help your decision when it came to where I was going to go and where I was not going to attend?
Well, to be completely honest, when I went to Ohio or OTC to visit them, I went in there with best hopes and I saw the equipment they were using and the vehicles that they were learning on, and it wasn't the best of the best and the new stuff that's actually being used in the industry.
Okay. And did you find that out there?
Yes, I came to Wyotech and they had the brand new car liners, which is a collision rack which pulls out damage. They had brand new spray guns, paint booths, pretty much everything that is up to date.
So between that and the mountains, you were sold.
Yeah, I was sold.
Okay, that's great. So what's a day-to-day look like for you right now in your program? I'm sure you're busy, with a very accelerated program in 9 months. What
Yeah.
look like?
So usually I wake up around 6 o'clock, eat breakfast, get my morning routine done, and then talk to my roommates, and we'll walk to class around 6:50ish, get into class at 7, sit in the classroom and talk to the instructors for a little bit, and then head out into the shop. And we were given comp books or competency books that give us a list of the things that we need to get done in class, from structural repair to dents, cosmetic things. And I'll pick whatever I want to do that day. And say it was a dent, I would go to the instructor, give them a ball peen and ask them to give me a dent, and they'll come over, hit the panel, and I would start to grind the panel, and then I would use my weld-on dent removal tools to pull out the dent, make sure it's all straight, and then I would apply filler and sand down the filler and make sure that's straight.
Okay. Well, that's going to lead me to my next question. What's the biggest challenge you maybe have faced in the tech program or the program right now in pursuit of being certified in your trade?
It's definitely the sanding. The sanding is very time consuming. It's tedious. You need to have it perfect, and it really takes time.
Okay. And so what's the best part?
I would say the structural repair. It's a lot of fun being able to see the damage and pulling the damage out, cutting it out, putting in new panels and making the car look brand new.
And that'll lead me to once you're out of Wild Tech and you're pursuing this as a career, what's that dream job look like?
I would love to come back home to Michigan and start my own shop where I buy wrecked cars and fix them and sell them back to the public.
Okay. And you touched on a point that you and I talked about the other night. You said own your own shop. How can that program that you're out in right now help you with that?
Well, collision shows me everything that I need to do to actually do the work and do it properly. And then me taking the ASM course, it shows me how to run a business, how to manage accounting and things like that.
Well, Avery, you're one of my first guests I've had that's been in the skilled trades and actually out in a trade school at this level of Wild Tech. And I can't thank you enough for joining me, because there's a lot of students in the audience tonight, as well as throughout St. Clair County and the country, that are very interested in skilled trades, but they don't get to hear from a lot of people. So I want to thank you for joining us. But I also want my last question to be aligned with that. And what advice could you give high school students that are interested in maybe the same skilled trade that you're in, or something else that may be offered at another technical school?
I would say just involve yourself, try and learn the cars and how they work, and visit trade schools. And you can even watch like the day in the life of a mechanic or a collision tech on YouTube. They're great videos.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Avery. I'm sure we're going to have some questions coming to you here shortly in the question and answer period. And we are going to move to our next panelist. We'll come back to you here soon.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Our last panelist this evening is coming to us from Mount Pleasant up at Central Michigan University. Olivia May, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
And Olivia is also a graduate from Marysville High School. After the graduation, Olivia, I'm going to jump forward a little bit, actually, right now. So what are you majoring in at Central Michigan University, and what is your minor?
So I am actually an education major, and I'm a double major. So I don't have a minor, I just have two majors, and it's health education and physical education.
I got to backtrack a little bit for the audience. So you actually have two majors.
Yep.
Why two majors and not a major and a minor, which is very traditional in terms of speaking about a college degree, especially a bachelor's?
Yeah, so I knew right away that I wanted to do something with secondary education, but I also really wanted to do physical education, and that's K through 12. So I decided that, well, at Central, they like pair health and phys ed together. So you have to take it as a double major. And that was best suited for me to still get my secondary degree and then still have the option to teach at an elementary, middle, and high school with my physical education degree.
Okay. And there's, in education, like there is many professions, there's a lot of acronyms, and I had to learn this as well when I went into education. So K through 12, tell the audience a little bit what that would mean and the difference of that and the other items that you mentioned.
So you can either choose to be an elementary teacher, a middle school, or a high school teacher with a K through 12 degree. So it would be like kindergarten through 5th, then 6th through 8th, and then 9th through 12th. And then with just your secondary degree, you can teach 6th through 12th. And then with your elementary education degree, you can teach elementary and middle, I think. I'm not sure about middle, but I know elementary school for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. So you're making yourself more competitive.
Yeah.
Very good, which is the end game of getting a job in a great career in a great field at a great school. So I think it's a great decision. I'm gonna jump forward a little bit. So you didn't attend Central right away after graduation from Marysville High School, did you?
No, so my experience is different than, I guess, like Josh and Emily were explaining. So they went to like Michigan State and Michigan right away. So they got to experience their university like without COVID at the first year. But I went to SC4 for a year. And the reason for that was because I knew I wanted to play basketball for another year, and that gave me the opportunity to do so. And then I also wanted to get my general education classes out of the way with while I was there. So I actually did the Michigan transfer agreement. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with that, it's 30 credits of just general education courses. So I would recommend that to anyone thinking about staying at a community college, because it saved me having to pay the price of my general education classes at a four-year university.
Okay. And so how many years did you have to stay at SC4?
I only ended up staying for one because I finished my Michigan transfer agreement, and then they didn't offer education courses for my major. So I took the only course that they offered there. So it just made more sense for me to transfer after one.
Okay, so natural transition then to a four-year university or college.
Yeah.
Okay. So choosing education as a major, obviously you went to C4 and you got some general eds out of the way, but then the one education course. What inspired you or led you to this major and career choice prior to attending both of those colleges?
Yeah, so I always knew that I wanted to go into education because my mom's a teacher, and she would always take me to her classroom, and I absolutely fell in love with teaching. And I initially thought that I was going to be an English major. I was dead set on it because I love like the creative writing aspect of that. But then I thought about like more of my interests and loved my high school nutrition classes, loved PE classes. I want to coach. So I ended up figuring like that would be best suited for me.
Okay. What's it look like in a day-to-day in your major now that you are pursuing your passion as a career?
Yeah, so I have about 2 to 3 classes every day, and that's with most education majors. You should expect to take at least 15 credits per semester. And my homework is actually quite a bit different than a lot of other majors. I get to spend my time creating lesson plans, and then I actually get to go to class, say the next day, and teach them and see if that worked, if that style of teaching worked, and I guess fix what I need to do. So it's a really like hands-on learning experience for me.
And during that hands-on learning experience, was there any, Josh talked about an internship and Emily talked about her work experience, that's leading to helping build for her future career and Josh's future career, as well as Avery. Was there anything along the lines that you're doing in classes right now that's similar to what your major?
Yeah, so I actually get to spend a lot of my time like in the gym because PE major, or like in the health class, I guess doing those hands-on things. But because of COVID, we were supposed to go to a preschool and get to observe learning behaviors of students, like little kids, but we didn't get to do that. So I'm hoping that next semester I get to actually like go into classrooms and watch how teachers teach.
Okay, yeah. Did you get to do any observations prior to that, to the COVID and the pandemic?
I got to do a little bit, but not much because I ended up taking my education class second semester
Okay,
last year.
okay,
So most of my observation has just been based on past experiences and current professors. So I'm starting to get a base of the teaching methods that I want to have just from going back in my high school days and being like, okay, this worked really well for me. Or I know that most students did really good with this style. And so that's just kind of how I'm trying to look at it right now.
okay. And we also talked about this, you know, there's a next level of courses that you'll be coming up to your major. Talk to us about those 400 level classes.
Yeah, so actually I will start like pre-student teaching pretty soon and student teaching, and they'll put you in little cohorts, which are like small groups of like 30 kids, like 20 to 30 kids. And you'll get to collaborate with each other, but I will get to actually teach a class. So either if it's online, I'll have to like record myself teaching a lesson and submit it so they can actually use the lesson. So that's pretty exciting.
Okay. It's exciting probably to see your work, you know,
Yeah.
be implemented and, you know, have legs and you'll kind of come to life.
Yeah, even now, like some teachers will be like, oh my gosh, that was an amazing lesson plan. Would you mind if I used it? And that's just so like, it's such an achievement for them to even say that. So
Yeah, that's a great feeling. I want to backtrack a little bit to when you were at SE4 and you played a year of basketball. And I've had guests before that were student athletes or in the band or in clubs. You know, Josh and Emily and Avery talked a lot about the things that they're involved in on campus as well, in juggling that. What was that like? It's just 1 year, but it's, you know, a lot of people are interested in joining those things. You know, how did you handle both?
yeah, so it was easier, I think, at home to handle both because I had my parents like cooking dinner for me. Like I knew that I didn't have to worry about that. I knew I would go home and like a lot of things would be done for me. So I think at a higher level, like outside of a community college when you're away from home, or even at a community college away from home, it would be harder for me. But I was able to manage it because I was in my own space. I didn't have to share a dorm room with anyone. I got to go home to my bedroom, sit down, do my homework without any distractions. But I could definitely see why people would be nervous about it, but it was definitely worth it.
Well, I really appreciate you answering the question that way because an advantage a lot of people look at, and in terms of community college and staying local to whether they do live in an area of a university or college, but we are fortunate to have a community college right here in St. Clair County.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Olivia, you mentioned too, your mom's an educator, and you know, that's kind of led you with the passion to go in education as a career and to major in that. What would your advice be for a high school student that is interested in becoming a teacher, whether it's elementary, secondary, or high school, or maybe even something that's specialized?
Education, like teaching is going to be like such high demand. They're going to need teachers. Teachers literally shape kids' lives. So I definitely recommend doing that. The biggest piece of advice I would say is to research the new education program because they are changing it to like they're chunking it like K-2, like 3-5, like that. So it's more specialized. So have an idea, but don't go in closed-minded like Josh mentioned, because there is a ton of ways you can go within education.
Okay. Well, and you know, the good thing about education is you can talk to somebody every day that, you know, much of that's already in the profession and ask them questions. So, and you talked a little bit about the campus life and the feel of, you know, starting at SE4 and then going to Mount Pleasant. You know, how's that in Mount Pleasant, and have you found a home there?
Yeah, I would call this my home any day. It's amazing. The campus is beautiful. It's actually pretty small compared to a lot of other D1 schools. It's probably about a 15-minute walk from one end to the other. So it's super convenient for walking to every class.
Okay.
And it's just such a welcoming community.
Very good. Well, I got questions for all you guys right now, but I know we're going to open it up to the audience And my partner, Rachel Verche, is actually going to read out the questions from the chat. So if anybody has questions for any of the 4 panelists right now, you can go ahead and quickly enter it into the chat, and Rachel's going to read it out, whether it's to the whole panelist or it's just to one specific panelist. So we'll give you a moment here to formulate those questions. All right. Well, I have some. So if you're thinking about them, I just want to make sure to give you time to get them into the chat. But I'm going to actually throw out to this whole panel, because even though this is an hour-long event, I could have had a event with each of you for an hour apiece. You talked a lot about campus life in the field. You know, Avery in Wyoming, Olivia up in Mount Pleasant. We have Michigan State University in East Lansing, and then we have U of M in Ann Arbor. So if each of you, I'm going to start with you, Emily, talk a little bit about what you love so much about the campus life being at Michigan State.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess probably my favorite thing about MSU is that it's kind of like the bubble campus experience. So when you're actually on MSU campus, everything's super green, there's tons of sidewalks, and you're very much on campus and you're not in East Lansing. But as soon as you cross Grand River, and you're in this awesome little college town, we have tons of awesome restaurants and cute little shops. It's very walkable. We have a great bus system, which is fantastic because MSU's campus is absolutely enormous. I think my freshman year, my first class was like a 45-minute walk from my dorm. So the bus systems are great. I love when it's warm outside. My friends and I will take blankets and literally go sit next to the river and do our homework outside on the grass. So that's a big thing for me because I love being outside and the fresh air. And it definitely helps alleviate some of the college homework stress, that kind of thing. And East Lansing is an awesome little city too. So yeah.
And Emily, while you are unmuted, we have some questions coming in for you specifically. And thanks to everybody for putting the name in of the person who this question is directed for. Really appreciate it. So there are actually 3 here. And we'll start at the bottom with, I think, the one that's the most factual and the least personal. And that one is wondering if physiology deals a lot with mathematics.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I guess it depends what level of physiology you're taking. So my first physiology class was like a 300 level, and it was super cool because it was geared towards pre-health professionals. So it was 1 semester. We had online, it was an online class before COVID. So we took, you mean psychology, Eddie? Is that physiology or psychology?
Yes. Yeah, you just answered
okay.
with yes.
So psych really does not have a lot of math in it. It's mostly the focus of how the mind works and how behavior is influenced by the brain. So that's actually my concentration is behavioral and systems neuroscience. So I have a lot of biology-based, cellular-based mechanisms in the brain, but then also a lot of psychology and how the mind works independent of the biology of the brain, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Emily. And while we still have you unmuted, 2 more questions that are somewhat related, and this revolves around your AP experience. So first of all, how many years total have you been in school? And you had said you earned a lot of credits from AP. Mm-hmm. And so the next question I think is connected as well. How difficult was it to adjust from AP courses in high school to your neuroscience major courses in college?
Okay, those are both great questions. So this is my 3rd year at Michigan State. I transferred 48 credits, I think, and I am graduating this semester. So I'm graduating a year early, which is phenomenal because, as everyone knows, college is really expensive. So that's great. And then as far as difficulty of AP courses, they really, really helped, especially I know people think of STEM classes typically as only science, math, physics, but I think my most useful classes were actually AP literature and AP English language, because a lot of particularly neuroscience is reading really dense research papers, and you have to be able to digest that material, comprehend it, and then explain to other people what that means. So AP Physics and AP Chem were phenomenal because I got to skip freshman chem and freshman physics. But my AP English courses have helped me every single year of college in every class, no matter what department.
Thanks, Emily. I hope that answers the questions from the audience. If not, we can take some follow-up questions. And it looks like our next question is for Avery. Avery, here we can see him again. Avery, what do you see as the pros and cons of going to a school that is out of state?
I would say one of the biggest cons of being out of state is missing family and just missing home in general. But one of the biggest pros at the same time is you're able to find yourself more because you don't have your family there all the time, trying like showing you like how you are and everything, and you build a lot stronger connections not having family, uh like with just friends and everything. It's you become family. So
Thanks, Avery. And Nick, at this point, it looks like we're caught up with the chat box. So if you want to continue with your speech. Nick, you're still muted.
And I was muted. And so that question to Avery really aligned with what we asked Emily about campus life and the feel of, moving out of your mom or your dad's or, home and going off to college, whether it's a 2-year, 4-year, or a trade school. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that question to Josh and then back to Olivia as well. As what's it like, the campus life and the feel, being out there, pursuing the career of your passion, but also being away?
Yeah, I actually came here not knowing anybody else who was at Michigan. There were a couple people who were out of my class, but at first it was kind of like, you don't really have anyone to go to or to fall back on if when you first get there, you're not really like finding a fit. But kind of like bouncing off what Avery said, it kind of forces you to like get out there and really find some people. And I feel like you become a lot closer with those people because you're sort of forced to interact with them, be with them all the time, and not like, sitting in your room texting your friends who are across campus from back home saying like, hey, do you want to do this? But I would say campus life too in general is a lot of fun. Ann Arbor is such an amazing like town in general, just on top of being a college town. I consider the whole central part of Ann Arbor to be campus, spread out about a half mile past campus, because everywhere you go, like there's restaurants, there's a bunch of parks that are kind of just dotted all over the city that you always see kids at, doing stuff outside when it's warm out. Even in the winter time too, it's a lot of fun because kids will find ways to make do with our brutal Michigan winters. I know I've actually been on North Campus before, and I've seen kids literally skiing down through the middle of North Campus with skis and snowboards. So definitely a lot of fun, as typical 19 to 22-year-olds would do when left on their own. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, thanks, Josh. And we'll go to Olivia with the same question.
Yeah, so Central, like Mount Pleasant area, it's so inclusive. I think I mentioned that earlier. I can walk from one end of campus to the other end of campus, and it'd be rare that like nobody said, hi, how's your day going? Or, hey, like want to grab coffee? Like it's just so, everyone is just so loving. And even right now, like Josh mentioned, kids find stuff to do. There's people throwing cornhole right outside of my window. And in the winter, the the ponds out in front of the Student Activity Center were frozen over, so people go ice skate. It just feels like home. I don't have to go home every weekend because I'm here.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We are going to move on to closing out this evening before the scholarship drawing. I want to thank all the panelists, not only for just sharing, the answers there in the Q&A, but all your experiences. This is an amazing panel. This is an amazing amount of information shared in a very short amount of time, and really is going to be valuable to the students and families in St. Clair County. I'm going to share my screen here and talk about a couple resources that we can actually give you at the end of this evening and to help you in your planning here at the end of the school year. So this concludes the winter series as we approach the spring break next week before launching the spring series the week we get back, which will focus on transitions. Many people believe that the new school year begins when you walk in the door or on campus next fall. But the truth is, the next school year begins the day you leave for summer this year. The series kicks off Thursday, April 8th, with programming to provide the class of 2021, our current seniors, with the essential task and information needed before walking on campus next fall. The following two webinars that you see right before you will focus on the current juniors or the graduating class of 2022 to help prepare for their senior year and the steps that they need to take throughout the summer to be competitive with college applications and scholarships and scheduling AP classes that we mentioned today. And then last, we have our first ever webinar for our current 8th graders, soon to be freshmen in high school, to welcome them to high school, but not only welcome them to high school, get their career in college planning off to a start in their freshman year. For more information, you can visit the BWCAN website at www.bwcan.org, where you will find not only the recording of this webinar, but also the rest of the winter series, as well as the fall series and much more. To stay up on updates here in St. Clair County, you can sign up for the BWCAN monthly newsletter that provides subscribers, students, and families with updated information, resources from St. Clair County RESA, BWCAN, and our community partners and state partners as well. Here is one of the examples of our webinar recordings. If you just go and hover above the calendar, we have all the recordings. This is the 7th one. All of them are an hour long. So for your viewing and the information that you may have missed out on. Last but not least, the spring is a great time to check in with your high school counselors and or your college advisors to see what you can be doing before summer or here in the spring to ensure a smooth transition to next year, regardless of what your grade level you're in. The 5 college advisors that are on your screen right now, we're very fortunate to have them, and that shows which high schools that they're serving in. Last but not least, this is the Michigan's Hot 50 job outlook until 2028. This was the document that I continued to refer to. Actually, our panelists this evening, all 4 of them actually represent over half of the careers on this list of 50. And these are the highest in demand, highest paying careers over the next 7 years. To give you an example, Emily started us off talking about health careers, and 11 of the Hot 50 on this list are in health careers industry, including 6 are actually in the top 10 for projected job growth. Next, we had Josh studying civil engineering. Engineering actually represents 4 of the 50 on this list. Avery actually talked about his program out in the trade school, and actually 7 of the 50 on this list are skilled trades or skilled trades related. And last but not least, Olivia, who's pursuing a double major in education. There's 5 educational careers totaling over 8,000 projected job openings each year for the next 6 years here at Michigan. A special note in terms of education, because Avery did talk about his experiences at St. Clair County Tech. St. Clair County Tech announced this Monday that they're adding an additional 2-year program that's going to offer St. Clair County students the opportunity to earn a certificate in one of 2 areas of study in terms of education starting in the fall, and that's early childhood education or pre-K-12 education. So that is a new addition to their 13 programs. Next up, we have our scholarship drawing from our St. Clair County Community Foundation. This scholarship drawing happens at all of our events, and it goes to an 11th or 12th grade student in St. Clair County that was in attendance, and we'll give you a $500 scholarship to help fund your post-secondary education. So without further ado, I will draw one student's name out of our lovely jar here and mix it up. What we'll do tomorrow is we'll send you an email to the student and parent with the paperwork, and if you're an underclassman, we'll be in touch throughout your high school career and be ready for you after graduation. But if you are a senior, we look forward to getting in contact with your college or university to help fund for that education. So without further ado, tonight's winner is Catherine Dunsbury out of Algonac High School, 11th grader. Congratulations. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Well, that's all we have this evening for the student-to-student panel. Make sure to sign up for the week you get back for the start of the spring series. I'm Nick Boudreau from St. Clair County RESA. Everybody have a great evening. Thank you so much for joining us.